Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson of World Alternative Media here, and of course I'm joined by author and economic analyst John Sneisen. Now, Spain has been going without a federal government for a while now, and they're not doing bad. I have to tell you, they are. I've read an article recently from Mises, and they are actually prospering, which is a great example and plays right into what we talk about so often here at WAM. So, John, can you go into this a bit?
Yeah, well, the article is saying is Spain is without the national government, and Spaniards are digging it. That they are actually liking not having that elitist class on top of everything, controlling everything. And they say they just had the basic government services, and they haven't had anything. No new legislations are being proposed. Foreign policy is stuck in place, and many infrastructure and other government projects are frozen. And they love it because they're not spending a shitload of money. Of course, they are in a 5% deficit still, which is terrible. But I think they're starting to move in the right direction if you do the right thing. Of course, the government, again, as we saw in the United States when they shut down the government during their fiscal cliff and all this. When they're going too much debt and they gotta, renew their credit line, get a new credit card. It's all about scare tactics and fear-mongering. We saw it in Britain with the Brexit and so on, too.
Yeah.
And
I remember I was going to actually mention that, John, when the United States shut down their government while stopping veterans from going to war memorials with park police. That wasn't exactly as much of a government shutdown as that was just a facade to distract people.
And what was interesting, I actually read a report on how they used I forgot, it was some kind of military or something that they used to shut down the national parks and to actually control them. Now they actually spent more money on shutting down the national park than the actual budget. So they didn't even, it wasn't even anything happening. They actually spent more money.
Don't shut it down, abolish it.
Yeah, exactly.
But go into a bit about what we're seeing in Spain here, because I know that there's still a municipal government in the factor here. But how are the people in Spain doing, and how is this all playing out?
Now we do know a lot of smaller, tinier governments are way more. They have to. Be more accountable to their people because the people are right there at the doorstep. They don't sit in a high ivory tower somewhere far away from everybody else making laws. Of course, things are going along as they had been. But of course, people were saying, that hell's gonna freeze over if nothing happened in Spain. But now people are saying, for example, Felix Pastor, a language teacher, he says, no government, no thieves. And then you have a website editor called Ignacio Escolar. He says a lot of people said that we would go to hell if we didn't form a government, but we're still here.
Well, who would have thought that individuals could take care of themselves?
Yeah, and that's what they're saying. Now, I just want to say one more from Ana Cancela, which is actually a civil servant. She works for the government, and she said, we already knew that politicians were corrupt, but now we also see that they can't even make politics work. Politics are dead. I said this in the last election here in Manitoba. Let's
bury it.
It's time to stop politicians from running the show. If you want a government at all, I would say just have people rolling around doing the government themselves, and not have anybody that have any incentive whatsoever to make money. More money, being a government employee.
And allow everyone to opt out if they want to.
Exactly.
That's a big part about voluntary society and breaking free from that. And of course, the problem that still lies within that, and I talked about this on Jeff Berwick's show Anarcast, was basically the fact that even when there are these voluntary communities, if they're rigging the markets, if they're manipulating the markets, that will affect us. And of course, in Spain, the markets are still manipulated. The central bankers are still doing what they're doing. The dollar's being printed out of thin air, or they're still continuing the same implementations there. So I think, imagine if they're doing this well with this little government. Imagine how they would be doing if they had none at all. And I say that in the sense, well, we're not talking about anarcho-communism here, where it's all out chaos and, no one's allowed to have voluntary interactions with each other like free human beings do. We're talking about like the whole idea of, look at anarcho-capitalism. That is the most diverse and accepting form of anarchy, where people are allowed to interact with each other. They can have their little thing over here, we have our little thing over there. We don't coerce each other, we don't use force against each other, and we can decide as individuals how to run our own lives. But instead, the narrative of anarchy is all out chaos and people killing each other, which isn't the case. When you follow the non-aggression principle, that basically is abolished. That whole idea of just people killing each other, that's blown out, it's debunked, it's done. So go on here. I think you have something in Spanish to try and say.
First I'm going to go into just a couple of numbers. Now their GDP has actually risen. It's up at 3% suddenly, where most countries in Europe are seeing a massive deflationary period, because when you don't spend a whole bunch of people's money and steal it from them, there's more money and more flow and more economic prosperity for individuals.
Oh,
inside
absolutely.
Of that country.
When you're not manipulating things, competition can reign free. People are able to decide what they want with their dollar, and there's a difference. There's government, so everyone votes for what they want and then coerces the other 49%, and then there's free market capitalism, which we don't currently see today, where everyone votes for what they want and they get what they want without coercing other individuals. And what we see with a lot of these regulatory systems that involve businesses, which involve certain programs, what we see with that is it just literally creates the problem it strives to solve. So with healthcare, you cause the prices to go up, you create monopolies within pharmaceutical companies, and you cause a perpetuation of debt and inflation, where they just keep adding onto that pile over and over again. Same goes when you regulate businesses, then you regulate small businesses out of the market, and you have these gigantic monopolies that then people blame on capitalism, which doesn't truly exist.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a form of collectivism. Crony capitalism has nothing to do with capitalism whatsoever. It's a collectivist view. Now, we've been talking about collectivism and individualism, how important it is to learn the difference. And it's time for the people of Spain to actually really look into how they as individuals, through individualism and through anarcho-capitalism and other solutions, can actually start opting out of the terrible massive governments that have been building up in Europe for a long time, and see how. I think it's time for Spain to actually get out of the European Union right away, and then everybody else join them, so you can have free communities and so on. And we got to understand, governments always created the whole push against each other in Europe and so on. That's what happened. It was governments. And it was not the individuals that were racist or anything like that. It was the governments that wanted more power. They stopped at a certain amount of power, but then they wanted more. So then they had to escalate into going into wars and so on. I want to say something to the people of Spain, and you gotta excuse me for my Google Translate Spanish here, but
Let's see how this
I'm
goes.
gonna go for it here. Ahora es el momento de hacer un cambio en España. Gente buena.
It wasn't too bad.
No, it's time for the good people of Spain to take action and have change in their life. Now, I want people in Spain to start looking into individualism and all this, because you're on the right track here. Keep the federal government at bay, stop them from getting into power again, and you might be able to de-escalate the size of government through the provincial and so on, and then see probably a lot of prosperity for the Spanish people. Now, we also need to look at, of course, the monetary system you have and other things, but it's important to start somewhere, and I think they started with cutting the ties with the massive, national government, which we see everywhere. It's time to, if you want a government at all and have some services, have a very, very, very local government.
Coercion? Well, it's time, folks, to abolish the state and stand for yourself as free individuals. You can have your society if you want, but don't coerce other people. There's no moral argument for forcing other people into your slavery. Yeah. Collectivism begets enslavement, and what we have today is this push towards more and more even global collectivism, global government. And what we need to do is be able to stand up to that at all costs, because what we will see in the future is, oh, well, we have these districts that all vote in our elections, and then we have, 25% of people voted for this candidate, and now they win, and now the other 75% are basically plundered under the will of the 25%, and to a lesser scale, 49%, and it's wrong. We can't be accepting, no matter what your opinion is, you don't have a right to force other people to live the way you want to, just like they don't have the right to make you live the way you want to, and you wouldn't want it that way. If you're a conservative, why you don't want a bunch of liberals telling you that you have to pay 65% taxes. If you're a liberal, you don't want conservatives saying that you have to don't be smoking marijuana or anything like that. You'll go to jail. You don't want these people ruling you. So why should it be any different when it's the other way around, regardless of whether you think it's right or wrong? I mean, and just a note on that, real conservatism would be for not even just the legalization of marijuana, but the end of the prohibition. But the point is, what we see today is a bastardization of what a lot of people thought was a great idea a long time ago, and there were good principles to it. However, it's strayed far away from individualism into all-out tyranny, and tyranny comes in many shapes and sizes, people. So whether it's tyranny at the level of Pol Pot, if it's tyranny at the level of Stalin or Hitler, or it's tyranny at the level of, well, you're not allowed to smoke this plant, you're going to go to jail. You're not allowed to opt out of paying these taxes for programs you don't want anything to do with.
Well, I actually want to mention one thing that I do remember from Spain is the federal government was implementing a law that you weren't allowed to protest against them. Well, now we don't have a federal government, so that law doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
They actually were feeing people 50,000 euros to actually protest in public places. It was insane. And that's what you see when you start putting in those tyrannical ideas, which they really want. People are going to abolish you. You're going to disappear because you wanting to control people, that's not what individuals want. They want freedom. They want their life back.
Yeah.
Give it to them.
Yeah,
right now.
Absolutely. When it comes to being led off to the slaughter off a cliff, nada. When it comes down to us being able to be voluntary, free human beings, muy bueno. Thank you, John. Thanks. Another excellent report brought to us by John Sneisen here, and we have much more coming to you. Just remember what we told you. We have to end collectivism because collectivism begets enslavement. That's the main point. You don't have a right over other people. They don't have a right over you. Human beings are born free. The government takes it away. And most of all, the one person in life that you truly have control over is yourself. And without that, what's the point? And that goes for everyone. So thank you very much, John. Check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon. We can't do it without you good people. We put a lot of work into this. We do it all for free, and any donation is very much appreciated. So join us next time. We got much more coming to Wham. This is Josh Sigurdson, John Sneisen, signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.